How did those athletic pursuits translate to your successful business ventures? Where was the crossover? Or like, how did you all of a sudden get these motives to, obviously you're successful now. It didn't just happen at one point. What was the path to get you to where you are now? Like, what have your career opportunities been? How many jobs did you do before you got to where it finally clicked?
Yeah. So, I said I came from California. So one of the things my dad, kind of harped on me was he was in the construction trades. So he was a builder, and I worked for him, in construction. So I think I was probably 12 years old swinging a hammer. He kept telling me I need to go to college. I need to go to college to be successful. And I think, that generation, and even now, one of the big mistakes we make is we're teaching young kids that you have to go to college to be successful, which you don't. You absolutely do not. And my father kept beating in my head, you got to go to college. So I went to college, Cal Poly Pomona, graduated with a degree in urban and regional planning. And at that point in time, the economy was extremely bad. I couldn't get a job in urban and regional planning at all. And it was 1993, and my wife got pregnant, and so we had our first child. And we didn't have $10 to our name. And so out of college, how I ended up in Idaho was I was searching for jobs, and I had friends that were in law enforcement, and I was just like, I just got to get a job. And so I applied all over California, couldn't get a job because of affirmative action. That'll date me too, but if you look that up, you'll understand what that's about a little bit. And so I couldn't get a job, so a friend of mine I grew up with was in Idaho, lived in Idaho. He said, come up here, try to get a job. And I drove to Idaho, got a job with the Ada County Sheriff's Department. And so I started working the Sheriff's Department. When I was offered a job, I was in Idaho, drove back to California, rented a U-Haul, so it was a 15-hour drive. I drove 15 hours up, drove 15 hours back, picked up my wife and said, we're going to Idaho right now. I packed up the trailer, didn't sleep, drove 15 hours back to Idaho, and that's how we ended up in Idaho and started working for Ada County Sheriff's Department. And that eventually, led, I worked for Ada County Sheriff's Department, worked for Boise PD for a while too, and decided that I wanted to go back to school to get another degree in computer networking. And that eventually was bad timing too. So my life was kind of some bad timing issues, and how
did those affect you? Like, do those defeat you at all? Like trying these new things and not working out?
I've had a lot of failures in my life, and I never look at anything as a failure. I think like anytime I've ever failed or didn't succeed, probably should turn this thing off here. I silenced my phone, but I didn't silence my watch. Okay, there we go. It's silenced. I've always looked at failures as an opportunity to know how far you are from succeeding. And I think that's written in my gym, on the wall in my gym. And, it's, and so throughout those failures, I just go, okay, I'll pick myself up and move on and go from there. And I think being an athlete is, you learn a lot of those life lessons being an athlete. And, something that, is very vivid to me. I started racing bikes, and I remember one of the very first races, I was racing in. It was a road race, and I was dropped by the peloton. I was left, all alone on the road. And and I said, I almost had just got off my bike, and it said, I'm just going to quit. And I said, you know what? I'm just going to keep, riding, and I'm not going to give up. And, you never know what can happen of this. And eventually another rider caught up to me, and pretty soon there was a group of 5 of us, and we were all riding together, and, eventually caught the peloton. And, you never know what's going to come your way. And so I've always had this attitude of just, no matter what comes your way, if you don't succeed, you know what? It's an opportunity to learn, and I'll end up succeeding in the end.
And do you think that you're obviously in a great marriage with your wife, do you think with your excessive like compulsive like behavior, do you think that your wife plays such a great role in kind of calming you down? Because she was obviously very supportive of like moving with you all the way to Idaho.
That's, in order to have a successful marriage, I think you have to have, two partners that are working with each other. And I would say my wife had always been by my side. And, whether I succeeded or failed, she was always there for me. She was always my biggest, in life, of everybody, my biggest supporter, and somebody I could always count on. And, I think that's a big part of my success, is somebody that, and my wife too, whether, success is defined like in many different ways, we could have, we did have nothing in the beginning, and my wife will tell you we had everything we needed. So
She gave you a different perspective on things.
she did, and she still does. So, that's, a big part of my success comes from her and her support, and then my kids too. I mean, eventually my wife raised kids that were just like her, and they've been, my biggest supporters too.
Was she the first person that you felt like truly believed in you? Or did you have other people that you like mentored you or fully supported you before that point?
So yeah, because I was part of my story, I was leading to, and sometimes I have a tendency to talk a lot.
That's fine. That's good. That's good for this setting.
And so, I would say in my life, the big turning point, for me in my life was I was an athlete and I was very obsessed with competing, and I was a bodybuilder, and I spent a lot of years bodybuilding, competing, and then I started powerlifting, and I was really obsessed with powerlifting. I was obsessed with wrestling, but my wife, her mother was an amazing person, and
Take your time.
yeah. Yeah, it's so hard. Yeah.
No, you're good.
So, she totally believed in me. We moved to Idaho, and she was like the one person in my life that, I would say at that point in time in my life, I was a total failure. And I
In your eyes, at least.
and I would say in my eyes, because there was a lot of family members, telling me that too. And so I think I started to believe that because other people were telling me that. But my wife's mother always believed that I would turn out to be a good person and a good husband, which I wasn't a good husband at that time either. And so tragically, she died.
And how recent was this?
She was 57.
Okay.
So that was a long time ago.
Yeah.
And
But obviously the impact is still there.
it's still there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the impact,
Yeah, take your time. You're good.
yeah, so hard. It's like it was yesterday.
Appreciate you going into it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the impact was I never had the opportunity to show her that I was going to be successful. And I knew, even though I had family members telling me I wasn't going to be, and people surrounding me that I wasn't going to be successful, I knew that I would. I knew that I had it in me, and it just wasn't the right time. And when she died, that was, it was just tragic. And so as soon as she died, I was like, we actually moved back to California, and we left Idaho, and I took a job in California, and we were going to move back there because obviously my wife's mother was like her best friend. And so it was a major, major tragedy, and it was hard to see my wife, you like this? And so she wanted to move back and be with her dad. And so we up and left. And
How did that shift you like emotionally and just like from a life perspective? Did that change your viewpoint? Did it give you more drive to start like speeding up the process of things?
it instantly gave me drive. And so, because I didn't want, even though she wasn't with us anymore, my wife's father was with us. I knew I had no time. I mean, you don't know when your day is here, and I don't know when the day of people surrounding me is here. And so I had to start right then. And so I was very against working 8 hours a day. I was very into bodybuilding and pursuing my dreams, being a professional bodybuilder and just being a selfish person.
So that was the end goal. Like you wanted to go deep into the sport.
I did. I wanted to be a professional bodybuilder, and I wanted to be Mr. Olympia. And and I worked, for some companies, in the bodybuilding industry and stuff, bouncing around. But my wife said, let's go back to Idaho. And that's where our home is. That's where our life is. And we came back to Idaho, and I said, you know what? I'm going to work my ass off, and I'm going to build my wife a home that she deserves. And I'm going to make this happen. I'm going to work 24 hours a day if I have to.
Did you have to kill your ego in that process? So like, I want this for me. I want to be a bodybuilder. And then like, I have to sacrifice something, like sacrifice a dream for somebody else essentially. Or did you just like make it up in your mind that I want this more than I want to be a bodybuilder?
I wanted to, prove to my wife's mother that even though she's not here, that became my obsession, is to prove to everybody that I can be a successful person, that I will provide for my wife, I will provide for my family, and I will be a husband, I will be a father, and I'll be a good one, even though, I wasn't instantly.